Jamie Lee Ross.
I move that the question be now put.
Sue Williams-Seal. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Happy to take a call on part two, which is miscellaneous matters. It is very brief, and therefore I'll try and keep my comments brief as well. But I do want to refer immediately to clause 17. As I understand it, sir, the Commission follows judicial line when it comes to the appeals process. And what I'm noting is that before any person has a right to appeal the Gambling Commission, they've actually got to an appeal, before they can apply for judicial review, they've actually got to exercise their right to appeal. And the question I'd ask the Minister is, I thought that the purpose of this particular section was to ensure that the appeals process was done efficiently. Therefore, there's an expectation that the appeals be conducted quite quickly. And the way I read it, that a person could not seek judicial review in the immediate sense, unless they conducted the appeal and it reached an end. Therefore, it seemed like this particular process would actually prolong the whole appeals process. And if a decision has been made about either cancelling or suspending or revoking a licence, how long will this process take then before a final decision is made? And the reason why I ask that question, Minister, is because, as many in the House will be aware, there are many sports organisations who may be dependent on the funding that comes from that particular pokie machine. And to not be specific about the length and the time that will take in order for appeals to take place, particularly where a licence has been suspended, actually leaves those sports organisations in a bit of a limbo. That's the first question. Second thing I'd say, in the appeals process, what's not there that I think the Minister ought to be concerned about is, given the fact that the community and local governments have over successive years taken a keen interest in this particular industry, and particularly where gambling licence pokie machines are concerned. And what's not there is where local governments can play a role, or communities can play a role, in the instance where a licence has been granted. What happens if a local government or the local board has a policy where they are saying that they have a sinking lid policy? So do they then have a right under this particular process to appeal a decision by the Gambling Commission to maintain that sinking lid policy, despite the fact that a person might be applying for the extension of that particular licence? I know, sir, that the Minister would be very well aware that many communities, and particularly in impoverished communities, have become reliant on pokie machine gambling. In fact, as a natural part of them attempting to make ends meet. And there are organised communities, including church organisations, who would want to have the right to have a say in decisions that have been made by the Gambling Commission, and in particular with the granting of particular licence in certain aspects of our community. And again, that seems to be missing from that clause 17. And if the Minister has any intention of including the rights of local government, local boards, the rights of communities to be part of the appeals process, then it should also be in clause 20 in terms of the new schedule there. Because again, because it's missing in clause 17, it appears to be missing in clause 20. But ultimately, sir, if this bill is about being open, being transparent, then there is nothing in here about how the Gambling Commission intends to minimise the harm that pokie machines ensues on the local communities. So some years back, when I was on local government in that famous Manukau City Council, before they were rudely destroyed by this government, the council undertook, sir, to do a review on the impact of pokie machines on that particular city. And after they had conducted a review in 2004, they found that after taking all the money that came in, dispersing the money to the sports, Mr. Chairman, dispersing the money to organisations, sports organisations, what ended up with was a deficit of $100 million in that community. And so I would have thought, sir, if ultimately the fundamental legislation was about reducing harm, and ultimately because this bill here is about being open and being transparent, and yet it fails to highlight how these procedures would enable the community to have a say, would enable local government to have a say, would enable also how the community can see how these processes are going to ensure the reduction of harm to the local community. But I want to emphasise, sir, that I think if the government is quite serious about being open and transparent in how it conducts this particular industry, then what's missing in Part 2, Clause 17, is where community organisations, local board organisations can intervene and have a say on the Gambling Commission's decisions where licences have been granted, and yet the communities may have wanted that that particular licence be no longer established, or where the community has a policy, or the local board may have had a policy that they have a sinking lid policy pertaining to that community. So I'm generally asking the Minister whether he would entertain a supplementary order that can ensure that local boards, communities can have an input in terms of the appeals process in Clause 17 and also in Schedule Clause 20.
Jamie Lee Ross.
I move